substance abuse problems. So I was case manager there. I had about 25 families, a total of 40 people that, I was case manager for. And I loved that work. And I used to bring my little kids that were living in that facility across the street to Catholic, so they could run up and down the fields and run up and down, the law school. And I would take them in the library and they would make so much noise. I'd be so embarrassed because we go upstairs and they'd go, look at that big book. And I was like, oh my God, get me out of here. But when I was finished, Dr. Coach, she's dying. When I was finished with that work, my boss said, you should apply and get your PhD, because what else are you going to do? And I was like, okay. So I applied and I was accepted. So that's how I ended up at Catholic University. But social work, people ask me all the time, why did you give up the glamorous life of being a broadcast professional to be a poor, misunderstood, overworked social worker? And I said, it's the same thing. We're helping people. It's probably better to help people than to exploit people. We're talking to people, we're getting their stories, we're doing all these things. There are lots of people in social work history who have gone back and forth between the two fields. The lady who's, they're putting, Ida Wells Barnett, they're putting a stamp in the pavement at Union Station. She had a newspaper and she wrote about lynching, and she informed people about lynching. And then later in her life, she got a job as a social worker. So there's lots of history of women going back and forth between different kinds of careers. So that's who, and my experience also has been in child welfare. I started as the case manager for all those families, and then I worked for the state of Maryland in the foster care system, and I worked with adolescents in foster care, and many of my adolescents were also parents. So, that's my area of interest, and that's the kind of research, things associated with that population that I'm interested in doing. All right, do we have any questions yet? Anybody have any questions? You good, Kathleen? Okay. As long as you're with us, we're good. Okay, we're good. All right, great. Okay, so what I'm going to do is a little presentation, Caitlin, and Caitlin's going to be my driver for this. Thank you, Caitlin, because I'm not that smart. And if I have to do two things at once, I will be totally confused. So she's going to drive my PowerPoint while I talk, and in the talk, we'll say exactly what we're going to talk about. So welcome, that's the first part of it. You're going to put it in Google Slides? Okay. Welcome. Our building is in Shahan Hall. So for your freshmen, you're going to be taking SSS 101, Introduction to Social Work with me. And the way the university has this planned is the first 2 weeks you're going to be in quarantine. And then the week of September 8th, we will start meeting as an in-person class. That's our plan right now, okay? But some people I know are going to be online. I know this, that they're going to be online, but we're going to work that out, as the time moves forward. So next slide, Caitlin. So here's what we're going to do in this little PowerPoint presentation. We're going to talk about all these things. All right, next slide, Caitlin. So this is the image, go back one. This is the image people have of people in social work. I think you have to go back to, yeah, that one. As an overworked person who has a lot of paper hanging around because they got a lot of forms to fill out, and they're just, they just cannot get out from underneath their work or their paperwork. So we are busy, okay? I'm going to be frank with you. We are busy, but this is not our life. and it doesn't have to be our life. So next one, social work is a very broad field. There's Dr. Meyer in that picture. This is Anthony Cox, who just got his PhD in the last 3 or 4 years because his PhD in social work was interrupted by his service in the United States Army. So he served in Afghanistan and Iraq. I actually went to class with Lieutenant Colonel Cox. And so I finished up while he went to the war. He's a behavioral health officer in the United States Army with an MSW and a PhD. He's retired now. But that goes to show you that his social work skills were helpful, even as he defends and protects our nation. Those social work skills are useful. Next. This is Ghislaine Kraft, who is a graduate of our PhD program. She is a weekend warrior, that is a part-time soldier. She works as a behavioral health officer for the Maryland Army National Guard. And she has a BSW, an MSW, and a PhD in social work. That picture of her with that red stuff behind her is when she was deployed to Kuwait, and she had to fly to Iraq to a combat zone to assess a soldier who people thought was suicidal. So they put her on a helicopter, flew her to the combat zone. She had to do the assessment. Turns out he wasn't, suicidal. He was just very tired. And then they flew her back. But she's a social worker. She now owns her own company, is doing tutoring and other kinds of things. But this is something that people don't realize. Social workers can do all kinds of things. Next slide. Hi, Dr. Sabatino. Okay. So what is a social worker? This is what our code of ethics says a social worker is. This is part of the preamble to our code of ethics. So our mission is to enhance human well-being and help meet the basic needs of all people. So when your grandma asks you, well, honey, what's a social worker? These are the kinds of things I want you to be able to say to her. This is what we do, which is everything, and this is how we do it. Next. We practice on 3 different levels: the macro or society level macro, the meso, organizations and communities, and micro, which is the individual way of doing this. This is our defining feature, the person and environment perspective, right? The problem may be with the person, the problem may be in the environment. It's the goodness of fit that we're looking at. Why doesn't this work? And the area that we try to fix or remediate. Next slide. So the core professional values of our profession, because we're a value-based profession. We're not just a profession that's out there. We are very strong in the values that we profess. And you're going to have classes where we talk about these values and we explain what social work values are. And so there's just 6 of them, but you can see that for those of you who have taken classes in Catholic social teachings, that there is some complementarity between the values of the profession and Catholic social teachings. Now you say, how did that happen? Well, one of the premier scholars at our school, who recently passed away, was on the board of the organization that developed the Code of Ethics. Also, Sister Joseph, Dr. Joseph, who also was one of my professors, she was also on the board in developing those ethics. And both her and Dr. Conrad are both religious women. They were nuns, right? So when we talk later about organizational change and how that happens, this is how this happened, that there are complementary values between our profession and Catholic social teachings. Next. So Caitlin, I'd like you to play the video from Nicole, who is a graduate. While you're getting set up, I'll have Dr. Sabatino introduce herself, okay? So if you take us to, okay, there we go. Dr. Sabatino, where'd you go? Okay. All right.
Well, greetings, everybody. My name is Dr. Chris Sabatino, and I'm the chair of the MSW program. That's the next program you'll go into after you've completed your BSW program. I have a BSW from Fresno State University, and my senior field placement was at the legal aid clinic in the county. And I represented folks who had been denied Social Security disability benefits and also state disability benefits. And so it was a very interesting combination of learning how to work directly with people to collect information from them, but also how to negotiate the larger systems of major institutions. And it was quite an amazing event. My MSW is from the University of Maryland. I did 2 field placements. The first one was at the Washington County, Maryland, that's Hagerstown Community Mental Health Clinic. And my second field placement was in the Prince George's County Department of Social Services, where I did investigations on child abuse and neglect, but the other side of the coin was I was in adoptions. And I got to really help families realize their life experience. I got my PhD at Catholic, and my area of research is school social work practice. So what I'm interested in is helping every child have success in school, because if they're successful in school, we know they'll be successful in life. I started the school social work program for the Archdiocese of Washington, but I've also worked in the public school systems with regular education and special education students. So perhaps more than you want to know about me, but I thought I'd share it in case anybody has any questions. Feel free to shoot me an email. We're all basically at our last name, sabatino@cua.edu. So welcome. We have a terrific baccalaureate program. You know, it's much more sophisticated, more enriched than my experience as an undergrad, but then again, that was a long time ago. So welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Sabatino. Thank you very much for joining us. All right, you ready, Caitlin, to play our video? All right.
Which one do you want me to play first?
Nicole.
Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicole and I am a BSW graduate from the class of 2019 of NCSSS. A little bit about my social work journey started during my freshman year, and I received a recommendation from a classmate of mine to take the Intro to Social Work class. And I was really excited because I knew vaguely a little bit about social work, but not really that much. And as soon as I took that intro class, my second semester, I instantly knew, okay, this is where I meant to be, because I knew social work was really the type of work and a program that I wanted to be in, but I didn't exactly know how to get there initially, or that social work really existed as even a program at Catholic. So as soon as I took that class, I knew right away, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I instantly made that switch, except I didn't fully switch. I actually was a dual degree in arts and sciences and a bachelor of social work in the social work school at Catholic. And so to me, a little bit more about social work was the fact that I find this profession to be really rewarding and super fulfilling between all of the possibilities of where you're able to work and who you're able to work with. And the bright side about it is that I feel that everybody's able to kind of find that niche that suits themselves the best. So whether that be working in a school, whether that be working in an adoption agency or a hospital, there's really endless possibilities. And that's sort of the bright thing about it, is that you could try, one area working in and it turns out great, or maybe not so great, but you're always able to switch and you're still doing great work and you're still helping populations in need and developing the people that you work with along with yourself as well. So that's kind of the biggest picture for me about it. The other highlight about the program specifically at Catholic is that it has 2 built-in internships. So one starting your junior year for 1 semester, and then your senior year for the entire year. And that is huge. And I cannot emphasize that enough, where, not every program is fortunate enough to have these internships built in. And experiential learning is crucial, especially in hindsight for me, because you're really getting to put into practice what you're learning in the classroom into real world experience. And it really helps you connect those dots and bridge the gaps where I don't feel like you necessarily can get that as well until you've graduated and then you've started working and it's really, oh, okay, this is what I learned in school. So you're actually getting that practice while you're learning, which is great. And you can ask questions and clarify things with supervision. And it really works out well overall. And, the other thing about the program at Catholic is that it has a smaller niche of people that are involved. So it's really easy to form these close bonds and relationships with your class specifically, and then with other classes, throughout different grades. But, there's always that kind of common ground of why you're all in this major and why you've chosen this program. And despite having outside interests or what you do outside of the classroom, we all come together for the same purpose. And it's a really uniting factor, which is something that I was really fortunate to feel and made me feel really comfortable going throughout my time at Catholic. So overall, I highly suggest social work. It is great, and you will be really well supported by the program at Catholic. And I wish you all the best of luck.
All right. Okay. One thing to say about Nicole, she mentioned this issue of the dual degree. So we don't really have to discuss the minutia of the dual degree, but it is possible. If you're thinking that you're not really firmly in one degree or the other. So the dual degree person takes 145 unique credits. Unique means that none of the classes that count for one major and that might be similar count for the dual degree. Okay, you only need 120 credits to graduate. The dual degree person has to take 145. And how Nicole accomplished this is by over-electing. Over-electing for us means, I have to go into Cardinal Station and give you permission to take more than 5 classes. That's all it means. So Nicole would over-elect every single semester, because she knew from the beginning, right? Take 6 and sometimes 7 classes a semester, and she would take classes during the summer. So at the end, she had all the classes that the degree in social work required, and all the classes that the degree in psychology required. Now that's different from a double major. A double major person might have 120 plus, but not as many as 145. And how we do the double major is some people, depending on the class and the major, I might be able to count a class that you have in psychology for a class that you have in the social work track. And that's the way that is done. So I've had majors in social work and psychology, double majors in social work and theology and religious studies, although that's very difficult because of the class scheduling. And we've had students who have achieved certificates in healthcare for Hispanic populations, which is a certificate program we have. So I want you to think about these things. You don't have to make a decision today, but just think about these things and explore them on the website. We also have the honors program, okay? Dr. Jennifer Paxton is in charge of that, and they have their own webpage on our website. So think about that too, because you could be part of the honors program, and I want you to be part of the honors program. And so you and I will work it out so that we can figure out what to do to make sure that you take the classes that you need for that. Any questions, concerns, issues, problems? Okay, Caitlin, can you play Devalier, the next video, and then we'll go back to the PowerPoint. Everybody's good? Okay, great. Mhm. I don't hear anything, Caitlin.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself.
Hi, my name is Rosalie, and I'm a graduate from the class of 2020 School of Social Work at the Catholic University of America. I want to start off by saying welcome to all of you, whether you're an already decided social work major or you are still deciding. So my reason for choosing social work, I would say, would be because I loved working with children, specifically disadvantaged children, and I realized that I wanted to continue serving that population. And so I decided to choose social work as my major, and I am continuing my path in becoming a professional social work major now through going on to complete a master's degree in social work at Florida International University in Miami, Florida. And so I encourage all of you to take that path as well into becoming a social worker, because although it's sometimes referred to as a thankless profession, it's definitely a rewarding one.
All right. So Rosalie begins in the fall, her master's. She is an advanced standing student, and we'll talk about what that means a little bit later in the presentation. Dad, Mr. Sanders, is he still around? Oh, he left? Okay. Well, I'll talk to him.
Sorry, he's here. We got a grocery delivery.
Oh, sorry. So, Mr. Sanders, I just want you to talk, not talk, but I want to tell you about this advanced standing thing, because what that means is if you get a degree, a BSW degree from a CSWE school, like our school, you can apply for advanced standing in a master's program. And sometimes people call the BSW, MSW track a 5-year master's program. So normally the master's would be 2 years, but if her BSW comes from Catholic, she can apply for advanced standing and have a master's degree in 5 years instead of 6 years. So we're talking reduction in expenses, Mr. Sanders?
I hear that. And I got my BSW in 1972 from Temple University.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, wonderful. That's great. So what did you end up doing, Mr. Sanders?
Well, so all right, so I'm Pat Merlo, the stepdad.
Yes.
Mhm.
And after I have a dual degree, like one of your presenters did, and I've moved into something like one of your professors does. I work on international civil rights. So you will find me in Kenya or Belarus or Bolivia working on issues of people's voting rights and integrity of elections, which of course is relevant right here at home. And I had no influence over the choice of schools or where Rachel is going with this. She has found this her own path, and we're all very proud of her.
Yes, you should be. So what do you think about our present situation?
Here we go.
Uh-oh.
Okay, moving on.
No, listen, I'll be serious. Every single country where I work, and I work with the National Democratic Institute for National Affairs, led by Madeleine Albright,
Mhm.
I get to work with President Carter and the late Kofi Annan and so on. So I've been around the world. Everywhere I go, I say the same thing. You know, citizenship is the basis for democracy. Citizens
Absolutely.
have to take it seriously and empower themselves. Talk to the meso level, we need citizen organization that pays attention to this stuff like our civil rights groups do. And you need to engage on policy at the macro level. And so any country that tries to suppress their citizens' right to vote is in trouble.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, any country that does things to make it more difficult, and especially to have some people excluded to the advantage of others politically, not just economically, there's a problem. And every country has that problem to some degree, including our own. So you can finish the rest of my presentation. I occasionally teach somewhere in law schools about, you know, international human rights, but I think everybody on this program knows. And I have to say, you may know, but this may be before your time, Father Gino Baroni from Catholic University was really an amazing person. In my 20s, I got to work with when I was at the Institute for Policy Studies. He's just a giant in community empowerment.
Yes.
And just an amazing figure that, you know, really helped inspire a generation. And I was one of them.
Wonderful. That's great. We'll be sending you the check later, okay? I couldn't have hoped for a better testimonial. I couldn't have hoped for anything better. That's wonderful. All right, then. Let's, Caitlin, can you pull up the PowerPoint and we'll finish up the PowerPoint? Thank you so much to both of you. Thank you.
Dr. D, quick question, just because you're on the topic of advanced standing.
Uh-huh.
There's a certain GPA. Do you know what that is off the top of your head?
Yeah. It's a 3 point, I want to say 5. Yes, 3.5.
Okay.
Dr. Meyer confirms 3.5 for
Perfect.
advanced standing. Now, if you have less than a 3.5, we will look at your record, right? Because people have bad years, or people get sick, or things happen. So if you don't reach that goal, you and I will sit down and talk, and we'll figure out whether I can write a letter in support of your application so that they may admit you provisionally. But we don't want to get there because all of y'all are smart. So I don't see, I don't see any problem, going forward. I think all of y'all will be able to do a 3.5. Easy, easy, easy. From my interaction with you thus far, I mean, Liz is like a social worker already. She like bugs me. Every morning it's an email from Liz. So Dr. Daughtery. So I know that she's a strong advocate, right? And she's a smart advocate. So I don't think we're going to go down that road, but just to let you know, okay?
Great, thank you.
All right, sure, no problem.
Dr. Daughtery, when do we need the 3.5 GPA by for the advanced standing?
Well, it should be in your final semester, but so we'll know at the end of the fall for you, Caitlin. We'll know what's going on, what we got to do. Okay.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
So part of being a really good social worker is to lean into all of our foibles. So if your GPA doesn't look like the way you want it to, when you write up your personal statement and submit it, don't pretend that the grade point average doesn't arise to the level it needs to. What really sends you over the top is when you tell us your story about why it happened that way. And we're social workers. We know that life intervenes on lots of different levels. So we've heard a lot of different stories, and some of them are pretty heartbreaking and pretty awful. What people got caught up in, and that's not our concern. Our concern is, what did you learn from this? How do you see yourself moving forward? And if you own that, it's going to speak volumes about being an independent, self-directed human being, which is what we're looking for in social workers.
Thank you, Dr. Sabatino. Thank you.
You also can do a little interesting math. So you have your overall GPA, and that's going to be what's on your transcript. But when you write up your application, you can highlight what your GPA is, say after you change majors, and highlight that you would be, that you progressively improved after shifting other things.
Yes, that's helpful for you. Caitlin, right? Because if you started out as one kind of major and you didn't do well, and then you switched to social work, and all your social work grades are straight A's, that's pretty impressive. That means that you finally hit on the discipline that works for you, okay? And that's significant when we evaluate who comes into the MSW program, okay? Any other questions about this issue? Thoughts, statements, problems, challenges? All right, cool. All right, Caitlin.
Can you guys see it?
You see it? I don't see it. I don't see it, Caitlin. It says that you started screen sharing. It doesn't say anything else.
Oh.
So take it back down and put it back up and see what happens. Caitlin is one. Let's give Caitlin a round of applause for being the master.
I'm gonna start blushing.
Huh?
I said, thanks, guys. I'm gonna start blushing. Oh, here it is.
Okay.
Found it. Oh,
Did you get it? Well,
hold on. I figured out what I did wrong.
oh, you had the wrong thing. Okay. All right. Because I was just going to go ahead and talk. Because you know I can. Oh, that's the wrong video. We're seeing your desktop, Caitlin.
Hang on. Can you see it now?
Yes, ma'am. Now let's go to the next slide. So now we're going to talk about the history of the profession. So let's move through this, rather quickly. Okay, next slide. So our profession is, relatively new. It's a 20th century invention, but people have always helped people since the beginning of time. So we don't particularly in social work do a good job of articulating the influences of the early development of our profession. We have indigenous helping methods, ways that people help themselves before there was the profession of social work, right? We have religious institutions like Catholic charity. My area of expertise is child welfare. Child welfare starts way back in 325 AD at the Council of Nicaea, when the bishops were told that if children get left on your steps, you got to take them in and raise them up to be good Catholics, right? So we have, in our society, we have Lutheran social services, Jewish social services. We have social services agencies across different faith communities. In Islam, there's the principle of zakat, which requires that if you're a believer, you give money to widows and orphans and enslaved people. That's what Islam says. So we have that tradition going on. And then we have at the turn of the century, or maybe at the late part of the 19th century, what civil society or what society does to help people, where we have houses for the blind, houses for indigent people, houses for this, whatever response civil society made to deal with what we call social problems or social welfare issues. It's a better term. Next. So this is just a little guideline of how our profession developed. We look back at the English Poor Laws, where industrialization forced a huge change in how the society in England worked in the 17th century. And so the government developed laws, right, to keep people off the streets because the wealthy people were annoyed by people begging for money. But, the way people made money and the way people lived had changed so dramatically that it altered the way society was functioning. But the attitude of the English Poor Laws was that poverty lay in the body. You are born poor, you're going to always be poor, you are poor, there's something wrong with you. And so we need to keep people away, people who are decent and, God-fearing people. We need to keep people away from you. So that attitude came with the Puritans and the Pilgrims to the United States of America. And that was our initial attitude about poor people, right? So mutual aid societies are part of American history. We know about how people came to the United States and helped each other. And then in the latter part of the 19th century, we have state charitable institutions. And then we also have this Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands. So during the Civil War, one of the things that happened is you have these 4 million enslaved people walking up and down the country. And they were like following along the Union Army. The Union Army got sick of them because there were women and children in that group of people. So they wrote to the Congress and says, you got to do something about these people. They make a lot of noise. We can't have a surprise attack with 4 million people hanging out behind us. So do something. So they established this bureau, and they actually did social work. Now, the agents of the bureau did not consider themselves social workers at all. What they were trying to do was really administer the Reconstruction, right? So they were in charge of the courts. They settled disputes. They married people. They were the bureau was the first time that the U.S. federal government ever got involved in labor law, because they would go with the formerly enslaved person to the former plantation owner and negotiate the contract to make sure that the former plantation owner was not cheating the formerly enslaved person. So that was a big thing, but it's not, the people that were doing all that did not consider that social work. But you know, W.E. Du Bois calls it, you know, one of the greatest social experiments of human history. As you change a society full of enslaved people to citizens. And he believed the path from enslaved to citizen is through education. And that is why Howard University was set up, you know, to help these formerly enslaved people move from enslaved person to citizen. So in the late 19th century, we have the formation of what we call the Charity Organization Society. And that is a picture of Mary Richmond, who wrote the first text that we consider a social work textbook. It's called Social Diagnosis, okay? So she worked for the Baltimore Charity Organization Society, and she worked closely with President Gilman, who was the president of Johns Hopkins University. And he wanted to have his students know what real people were like. And so he would send his students over to work with Mary Richmond in that society. And she developed this idea that, you know what, you just can't be any old person and do this kind of work. You really need to have a graduate degree so that you understand what is going on with these families and what can be done and what's the best way to help them. So she was a strong advocate for graduate education, although she didn't have any graduate education herself, right? So she moved on to the New York Charitable Organization Society, and that's when she wrote this textbook. Next. The Settlement House movement was at the end of the chart. So Settlement House movement marks the very beginning of professional philanthropy in the United States of America. So these are the list. There are some of the things that this Settlement House movement was able to accomplish. They worked on municipal reform and legislation for working women and children and women's suffrage. And the person that was in charge of all this, next slide, is Jane Addams, okay? So Jane and her, the apocryphal, sure, thank you. The apocryphal story of Jane is that she was from a wealthy family. Her mother died when she was younger and her father remarried, and she did not get along with her stepmother, right? So after she graduated from college, which was unusual in that day, because remember, this is the Victorian period. And so the public sphere, you know, running for office, doing stuff, that belongs to men. And then the private sphere, you know, what happens in the household, that belongs to women. So, but she was allowed to go and get her degree, and she wanted to do something with her degree. So immediately after getting her degree, she does the middle class girl thing and she takes the tour, okay? So back in those days, young women would take the tour, which meant you go to Europe, and you go to Rome, and you go to Greece, and then you go to Paris, and you paint a little bit, and you talk to people so that you know what Europe looks like. So she went on the tour one time. Then she came back to the United States and she's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Well, her stepmother wanted her to marry someone and Jane did not like this person. So Jane went on a second tour. And allegedly during the second tour, Jane went by Toynbee House, which is a settlement house in London. And apparently she got inspired when she was there and came back to the United States and called up her friend Ellen Gates Starr and said, Ellen, let's buy this house in Chicago and help the new immigrants to the growing city of Chicago, right? Because Chicago expands from maybe 100,000 people to like 1 million people in a short period of time because people are coming from all over the world to work in the factories. Dr. Sabatino is from Chicago. So ask her about Chicago. But Chicago really, I mean, you know, if you go there now, you can see, you know, how that happened and how, you know, a small little area expands and you can see all the factories and the railroad tracks and you know, the stockyards and all that stuff. And you can take the tour. I mean, you know, pay somebody and they'll take you on a tour, you know, so that you can understand the second city. So Jane and her friend set up this place called Hull House. So Hull House, the first thing she did there was establish a nursery. And because she realized that some of her programs were not working because the moms were saying, oh, I don't have a babysitter. I can't come. And I gotta work. So she said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna set up a nursery. And that was one of the first things she did. Now, the problem with the nursery was these women, you know, the immigrant women would come and leave their kids and then go off to their jobs, come back, pick up their kids. But one day she noticed that her census was going down. And so she says, well, why aren't y'all bringing your babies anymore? She didn't say y'all because Jane Addams is from the Midwest. I'm from the South. I say y'all. So anyway, she said, how come y'all aren't bringing your babies? And they said, well, Jane, here's the deal. We got to walk through mounds of trash in order to get back and forth to our tenement houses. And our babies get bitten by fleas and rats and rodents. Then they get sick and then we can't go to work. We have to stay home and nurse them back to health. She's like, what? And they're like, yeah. And so she says, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write to the mayor and I'm going to tell him he needs to pick up the trash on your street. So she did. She got her ladies together and they wrote all these lovely letters to the mayor about, yeah, you should pick up the trash. Well, what did the mayor do? Nothing. Because they're ladies, you know? So he did nothing. So she says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to run for garbage collector. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run for garbage collector. That way I'll have the data. See how important research is? I'll have the data to present to the mayor and make him change his policy. So that is the beginning of the municipal reform part of the Jane Addams story. And of course, you all know Jane won a Nobel Peace Prize, and Jane was all over the place, and Jane was the GOAT. Okay, she was the greatest of all time. But in the profession of social work, that's who we look at as the founder of our profession. Any questions, concerns, issues, comments?
Your explanation was very full of life. I don't know if you saw us, but we were chuckling over here at your jokes that you made.
Okay, I'll send another check. I'll send another check. All right, next question. Next slide, sorry, Caitlin. Okay, so now we're going to talk about our school, right? So this is the mission of our school, right? Our school is 100 years old. And the next couple of slides we're going to go through rather quickly, where I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of how our school got formed. So we celebrated 100 years last year in 2018, or the year before, yeah, 2018, 2019, we did the celebration. All right, next slide, Caitlin. All right, this is the original building of our school. So, you know, it says, you know, women were not admitted to the university, but the group known as the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops now wanted to have a program in this new discipline. And so they thought that a training school should be set up for wartime social service. And so this is Clifton House. It burned to the ground, so it's no longer standing. But the Council of Catholic Women actually funded the school for the first couple of years of the school. So you could change, Caitlin. We're going to go through these like 5 seconds each. Is that good? All right, so the students lived at the school. It was a small cohort of students. Many of these women, after they were trained, a few of them actually went overseas to help soldiers in the First World War, but many of them got hired here in the United States of America. Okay, let's keep going. This is a picture of the cohort in front of the White House in a 1922 visit. We have some, among this group of women, we have some women from other countries, right? So we've always been an international school. One of the young ladies there is from the Philippines, and for a while there, the Manila Alumni Organization was the largest NCSSS alumni association, you know, in the world. Next. All right, so this is what the class cohort normally looked like, and you see the males. Those were sociology professors who taught at the university who came over to Clifton House to deliver lectures. And among them is a famous person. Go ahead, Caitlin, and I'll talk about him a little bit later. So you see those ladies with the habits. Okay, so Dr. Sabatino has expertise in this order. They're called the Daughters of Charity. Dr. Sabatino, you want to say something about the Daughters of Charity?
I played a Daughter of Charity in a school play when I was in 3rd grade. I was given the full regalia. I could not believe it. I had to say a poem, and I can't remember the first way. Something house you've passed, Marillac house you've passed, Jackson Boulevard rather fast. That's where you find us, the Daughters of Charity of St. Vincent de Paul. And I was not allowed to keep the uniform.
All right. So, you know, some of you might talk to your grandparents about a television show starring Sally Fields called The Flying Nun. So her costume was based on their habit, but not all, as you see, not all the women are religious women, but there are always small contingents of religious people that are part of our school. Next one. So the man that I referred to earlier was Father Ryan. So the apocryphal story is that Father Ryan would get on the trolley and ride down to the White House and talk with his good friend, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, about social issues and social welfare, because he had experience working not only with the ladies over at Clifton House, but also with Catholic Charities. And so the story is he would advise President Roosevelt about the Social Security Act of 1935, which is one of the most important social welfare pieces of legislation our country ever passed. It funds lots of things, including child welfare. Father Ryan is known for writing a lot about how the social conditions here in the United States could be improved. And his claim to fame is his support behind the concept of a living wage, that a man ought to be able to go to work for 8 hours and have enough money to take care of his family in the way that he would like to. And that wages that didn't allow him to do that were just not right. So that is, Father Ryan actually lived on campus when he was at Catholic University. So he's part of our social welfare tradition. Next. So how we teach people to be social workers is this thing called FIELD. And Nicole told you a little bit about FIELD. It's the signature pedagogy of our profession, because Part of the way we transmit knowledge in social work is through the oral tradition. So you are going to, in your junior year, hopefully, you're going to work with someone 8 hours a week to teach you what it's like to be a social worker in the field, right? You're going to go somewhere, you're going to work for 8 hours, and then you're, going to come home. Now, we're going to help you. You don't have to select this place or find this place. We're going to give you options, and you're going to do an interview with somebody and figure out whether it's a good fit between the two of you. You have some selection choice, but not a lot, right? Because in order to do this, you have to be supervised by an MSW, and the agency has to have room for you, and the agency has to be willing to do it, and they have to be willing to do the kind of paperwork that we require in order to count. So, sometimes students have difficulty. So I heard from one of my students who's in field orientation today that our field office is saying that, field is just like dating, right? You kiss a lot of frogs and then you find one, So that's where we want you to be about thinking about your choices. Because any placement is a great placement because you're going to learn something, you're going to work with a social worker, and you're going to, improve your skills and also refine where you actually want to kind of work. So 8 hours in the spring of your junior year, and then 16 hours for your senior year, 16 hours. Now, our whole schedule is set up around this. We're not going to make it hard for you. We're only going to have classes certain days of the week so that you can go to field. We're only going to do things so that you can go to field because we need you to go to field. So don't worry about that. And a little later, I'll show you the plan for our classes so that you can accomplish this. Now, traditionally, we're a school that requires more field hours than other schools. Other schools do not have a junior placement. They don't do field until their senior year. But we think it's so important that if you have the opportunity to do it, then we'll set it up so that it will work out, okay? But don't worry about it. Field is cool. It'll be all right. But people get very nervous and stressed out. But it's all going to be all right. It'll be fine. It'll be just great. All right, next. Will you be able to get it? Okay, so Dad, this is for you. This is for you. Next slide. Of course you're going to be able to get a job. Of course, right? This is homework for Dad, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is the social work page, right?
No, I actually keep telling him, I'll say, I looked on the BLS today. Like, oh.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Keep reminding him. So there's the little URL down there at the bottom. All right, so let's change slides, Caitlin, because here's the important fact. Right there where that star is, social work as a career or as a job outlook between 2018 and 2028 is going to increase 11%, which is much faster than average. Other jobs, not so much. Social work, 11%. Now, if you look up at the median pay, 24, 26 an hour, it's not a lot of money, I know that, right? But she will be able to pay her cell phone bill. And that's all we care about, really. Pay your cell phone bill and your cable bill. That's it, all right? The salaries are artificially low, we know that. We know that, but if you could see me in person, you would know I have not missed a meal, okay? So you don't starve, you don't make a lot of money, but you have enormous and tremendous job satisfaction, right? And sometimes that's worth more than all the money in the world, okay? You can make a lot of money. You can organize yourself. There are plenty of social workers out here making tons of money. They're doing entrepreneurial things on the side, teaching people stuff, specializing in things. I have a friend who's running a little for-profit agency teaching people how to manage their life as they get older, whether to select long-term care insurance, to how to look at Medicare or Medicare benefits, and how to look at their investments and their retirement so that as they get older, they'll be in a good financial position. So it's a part-time job for her. She makes a lot of money doing that. So, you know, there's all kinds of ways to think about how you might, you know, take care of yourself with this degree. But the main thing is that you will be able to take care of yourself, right? Because if you can advocate for your clients and you can find resources for your clients, you can find resources for yourself, okay? Next. All right, these next slides, let's just go through them real quickly, are about licensing. That is the other thing about social work, is that you can get a license at the bachelor's level, right? No other profession, I don't want to say no other, but there are very few professions that are like this, okay? So this is social work licensing, all right? You have to have a degree, and then you have to pass an exam, all right? And this is why you do social work licensing. Next slide. So the primary purpose of professional practice regulation is protection of the public. That's why you would have a license. So the public will be protected. So you don't have people out here just saying they're social workers and then not really being social workers and hurting people. So that's why you have a license. Next. You might. Okay, the question is, will I need one? You might. Or you might not, it depends. You know, it depends on your job, your state jurisdiction, what you want to do, and what you plan to do. Next. So this is a chart of the licensing possibilities in Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia. As you see, all three jurisdictions have a license for people at the bachelor's level. And you can find out your state, like Massachusetts, at aswb.org. You go to their website and they'll tell you exactly what you need, what your education level needs. Next. So this is where, you know, I just sent you, you know, and it tells you whether you have to take an exam or not. In many places, you have to take an exam. In some places, not. You just have to present your degree. Next. We're going to talk more about licensing in class. So don't get all freaked out about it, but go and take a look at that website. You know, that might be helpful. So I told you earlier I was going to talk about advanced standing. So a master's degree program consists of 2 years full-time study. Some programs will grant advanced standing to applicants who hold a BSW degree from a program, as I said, accredited by CSWE, and we are accredited by CSWE. So you do 4 years in social work here, you apply for advanced standing. The following May, you graduate with a BSW 1 year. The next year, you graduate with an MSW. And for some people, that really works out because they know exactly what they want to do. You know, they don't have a lot of time and a lot of money. And this, you know, helps them make a decision about what they're going to do. So I think this year there are 3 advanced standing students in the MSW cohort. And they came in, 2 of them came in under other majors and switched to social work and then decided this is exactly where I want to be. So the next slide. This is what your coursework looks like. Let's move on to the next one. That's it, right? Looks pretty simple, huh? Of course, on top of this are the university requirements. University requires 3 philosophies, 3 TRS, literature, intermediate language requirement, and some other requirements I can't remember off the top of my head. But this is all we require. Your freshman year, you take Introduction to Social Work in the fall, and in the spring, you take diversity. As your sophomore year, you take 1 class, Human Behavior and the Social Environment. Dr. Charles teaches that, and you take an English class, Writing Improvement class that's associated with that. And in the spring, you take Human Behavior too, and Dr. Charles teaches that too. So you'll have Dr. Charles as your only social work teacher during your whole sophomore year. Now, around these classes, you have to take your LCs, right? You got to take all that stuff. So we're just, asking for one of your classes when you're a freshman and one class when you're a sophomore. But when you get to be a junior, it's going to expand. You're going to take 2 classes. You're going to take Policy 1 and Research 1. And then in the spring, you're going to take Policy 2 and Research 2. And you're going to do 8 hours of field. And you're going to also take a field seminar where you get to talk about what happened in field and how you feel about what happened in field. So in your senior year, same thing, 2 classes, one of them field, and a field and 16 hours a week in the field. And in your senior year, you're going to do a practice class, you're going to still do field, you're going to do a field education class, and then you're going to do the coordinating seminar. So like our coordinating seminar is an effort for you to complete your comprehensive paper. So I'm going to tell you right now, it's scary to death, 35 pages, all right? 35 pages you're going to have to write for this. Simple, simple, simple. I teach that class, it's 14 weeks. I walk you through it. It will get it done. I've never, except 1 or 2 times, because there were extenuating circumstances, never had anyone not finish that, okay? Because I yell at you quite a bit. I call you up. When is this? I just bug you to death. So get ready, because I'm ready to bug, okay? So that you will finish this on time so that you can graduate, right? I need you to graduate. So that's my goal is, my job is to facilitate graduation and movement on to the next level. That's my job. So next slide.
Dr. Gardy, can I just add something to that?
Sure.
Taking the human behavior and the social environment 1 in the beginning of your sophomore year, and the English class, that they go together. So you'll get the assignments, you'll get assignments that you'll work on in English for human behavior, but you also have separate English assignments and separate human behavior assignments. So just to clarify, like they go together. So you'll have to sign up for like a certain course with that there.
Right. We make an effort to talk to the person teaching that English 326 and coordinate. I just facilitated the meeting Monday with Dr. Charles and the writing improvement instructor who's going to be in charge of that class. So they talk, right? They talk and they coordinate, and Dr. Charles might suggest, how about a writing assignment around this? Because part of being a social worker is being able to deliver written communication in a reasonable way, right? That's how social workers communicate. When you pass a case on, you can't stand there and talk to the person for 10 straight hours. You got to be able to write a transfer summary, right? So you, as a social worker, do a lot of writing. When you do a biopsychosocial spiritual assessment of somebody, that's all written. It's a product and it's a process, but the bottom line is it's a written project. You got to be able to describe what is going on with this person who is sitting or standing in front of you in a way that other people understand what you've written, and that people don't have questions or any ambiguity about what you mean when you're writing things down. So writing is a real important skill. And we have a writing center, right? So if writing is not your strength and you're like, I don't know, I can't do it, we have a writing center, and you can make an appointment by yourself and go and see them. When I was a PhD student, I had been a writer for 22 years. I got paid to write, right? I could write. But when I wrote my first academic paper, I ran across the campus to O'Boyle, where the writing center was, to have them read my paper, because I hadn't done academic writing in a long time, right? Different kinds of writing requires different kinds of skills. So I ran across there and begged them, please read this and please give me some feedback on this, because I want to get it right, okay? I want to get it right. So don't be, embarrassed or ashamed if that's not your strength. You can always improve writing. Writing is a skill some people are naturally good at it. At this point in my life, I know that some people are very good at writing. They have a talent for writing, but any human being can get better, at their writing skill and their way of communicating in the written form. Any human being can do that. That's easy, and it's easy to teach. And if people are receptive, it's easy to get done. So we got the Writing Center for you. We got the Counseling Center. Okay, you can make an appointment with the Counseling Center, and I'll give you later some information on how to do that. We have the Center for Career and Academic Success. If you're having time management problems, or you're just overwhelmed by the amount of work that you have to do when you first come to college, you can make an appointment yourself. You don't need a recommendation from anybody, and go over there and talk to somebody about how to help you with the skills that you need. We also have the Disability Support Services Office. If you have accommodations, or you had accommodations in high school, I urge you to go over and see them to see how you can get accommodations for your college career. I just did an event the other day for them. And, I said the saddest thing for me is especially in my 101 class, it's very easy. If you just do what I tell you, you'll get an A. But, sometimes I have students who don't make it. And so they come to me afterwards, all upset. And they say, I just want to explain, I just want to explain, that I had accommodations in junior high and high school, but I decided when I came to college, I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to be just like everybody else and not have accommodations. And I'm like, and what did you learn? And they say, well, I learned I need my accommodations. And I'm like, okay, you learned something. That's good. So you need to do what you need to do to get your accommodations back so that you can do well in the future. I can't change your grade for you, but I can encourage you to go over and talk to Ms. Rothwell and the people at Disability Support Services so that you can get your accommodations in order so that you can do well in the future. Because there's no need to take bad grades. No need at all. If you need accommodations, you need accommodations. What are you supposed to do? I mean, God made you that way, so let's roll with it. Let's roll with it. Let's roll with it. All right, next slide. Okay, advisement. This is a question people talk about all the time. You are advised by the Center for Academic Success your first year because you have those LCs that you have to take. So those are your advisors. Your second through the fourth year, I'm your advisor because now I'm your major advisor. So here's how you get in touch with me. You can email me or you can call me. Our system allows messages to show up in my email. So even though I'm not at the building, I can see that somebody called and then I listen to the message and I can call you back, okay? My office is Shahan 110, okay? So that if we are back on campus the week of September 8th, that's where I will be. Next slide.
I just want to say also that I can put my information into the chat as well, so if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you. So this is my Google Calendar, and the information is in chat on how to do this. So you just sign up for appointments, and then I'll send you a Zoom link, and we'll talk. So the URL is on that PowerPoint that Caitlin put up, and you can just go there. You can see my calendar where it says student advising, double click, stick your name in there. Then I get a note that says, Kathleen wants to talk to you. And then I go to my Zoom and I send Kathleen a Zoom invite and she accepts or rejects. And then Kathleen and I are talking, okay? So that is, I'll send out an email to everybody, but it's also in the contact PowerPoint, the URL for my Google Calendar. Okay, next. Oh, hey, we're done. Questions, concerns, issues, problems. You can take that down. All right, everybody's
I'm so excited to start.
good.
I'll be taking SSS 223.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I'm very excited. Just wanted to say that.
Okay, well, you met Dr. Charles, the
Yes.
lady in the car, right? And Maddie, her daughter, and her husband, right? So you know the whole family, so you're ready to go.
I've heard great things about
So
Dr.
good.
Charles.
Yeah, she's wonderful. Okay, she's also, we had that in the chat. She's also the faculty advisor for Active Minds, which is a group that tries to help prevent stigma for people who have different brains, right? Differently ordered brains.
That's
And
really
so-
interesting.
Yes,
I'll have to make sure I get involved with that. Yeah.
yes, please, please. Any other questions, concerns, issues?
Very sorry. My dog's very antsy.
Oh, you have a dog, Caitlin? I never met your dog.
She's new.
Oh, no, I met your mom, but not your dog.
Yeah, I have 2 dogs. This is my puppy. We just got her
Oh,
a week and a half ago.
she's so cute. Hi,
Thank
puppy. Hi, puppy.
Um,
She's so cute.
I was just wondering, I was reading over the syllabus.
Uh-huh.
I was wondering, what are volunteer hours looking like just with
Okay,
COVID?
so here's the deal with the volunteer hours. Generally, when we're on campus, you can, do different volunteer hours in different spaces. Campus ministry has a boatload of opportunities that are virtual, right? So I'm going to give you a class day to go over to campus ministry and talk to them about what you can do and what and how you get signed up for that. The other thing about volunteer hours is when you are home, like if you come home on the weekend or something like that, or go home on the weekend and you do some volunteer work, like your parish feeds people or something, those hours count double, right? So think about that as you organize the 24 hours of volunteer work. Most of it will be virtual. You'll be doing things, like talking to non-English speakers, or I don't know exactly what campus ministry is doing, but we talked to them earlier and they're going to be doing a whole bunch of things, and they need volunteers, and so they're looking for you. So please go over there. And there's a social work over there, M. Jolie Mendoza. She's, a part of the campus ministry staff. And Sister Ruth, who's over there, she's a friend of NCSSS. Okay. Any other questions?
I have
Marilyn is hi, Marilyn. We
Hi.
see that you were there. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Marilyn.
So I'm actually an undecided major, but I just hopped on here because social work is like something I'm interested in, and I'm taking intro to social work this semester, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, I'm super excited too. Good. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Anyone else have a thought or issue, question?
I have like a comment also
Okay.
for like people who don't have an ear for language necessarily, like myself. I took Spanish for 8.5 years, and I think if you asked me anything in Spanish, I couldn't answer you. No, I don't know. And so when I was doing nursing, I didn't have to take a language, but as a social work major, you have to take a language. But one of the really great things about the social work program at Catholic is that they're one of the only programs that allows you to take American Sign Language and consider it a language.
I did that because we don't want the rest of the campus to know that it'll start a war. And so, but I do recognize American Sign Language as a language, but no other discipline does.
Sorry, but I took it last year, fall and spring, and I absolutely loved it. So that's my little plug for if somebody wants to try something new.
Okay. Yes, Kendall.
Hi, I do have one question. So
Sure.
I know that we were talking about math earlier, and my general advisor told me that there might be like a math class for social work. Is that true, or is there
No.
just one for psychology?
Now, we advise you to take Math 114 or Math 187, but it's not a math class for social work.
Okay, I was just checking. That's all.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, sometimes the people in advisement have no clue what's going on. I don't know why, but they have no clue. And so just ask me, just double check, and we'll fix you up. But there isn't a math class for social work. There's 114, which we advise because that's just basic math, and then 187, which it has a little more statistics in it. Okay. Yeah, we don't know any math. The only person who knows math is Dr. Cole, like I said. The rest of us are clueless. Anyone else? Oh, that's Caitlin.
I wondered if I could ask people what their greatest fears are about starting the program so we could be helpful. What worries you besides math?
I can talk. I think my biggest worry is like, I was having trouble deciding my major because I knew that I wanted to work with kids, but I didn't know if I wanted to go the psychology route or if I wanted to go the social work route. But then I found out, someone told me that social work is kind of like the heart of it, and then psychology is like the brain. And I definitely feel like my personality would fit in social work better. But like, I am a little worried that like it might not be what I want, but I think it is. So like, I guess that's like my only thing when it comes to it.
And we won't be mad if this is not it for you. We won't be mad. I'm never mad at people that say, really, I need to do this. I have chocolate in my office, and you're always welcome for to have the chocolate. I don't, if you start with me, you're mine until the end of time. Okay. So don't even, think about that. I want what's best for you. And if we have to talk through what you need to do, and it ends up you're not staying with me, it's okay. It's fine. It's okay.
I think, there can be similarities, but the difference is, I think a lot of times psychology works only with children, right, when they have issues. But I think social work really looks at issue from holistic perspective. So when we work with children, we have to work with parents, and then we will have to work with schools. So we are trying to see where the issue is coming from, and then we are trying to address the issue as a whole. So I think the main difference is really whether you work with that particular individual with a given issue, or you work with the whole system. Like you saw earlier, we work with micro, meso, and macro. Even though you kind of decide to work as a micro person, you have to also work with meso and macro. So I think that's kind of something unique about social work.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Kathleen, I'm so sure that I don't like the split between head and heart, because I think social work has both head and heart. One of the things that I like to add, I often start a class by saying, I'm struggling and I need to talk to somebody. So tell me, why should I go to a social worker versus a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a priest, my next door neighbor? And in the long run, it's because social work has this very, very different way of looking at what a situation involves. So psychologists have a streamlined approach. They use a lot of tests and measurements, and they're looking at mental processes. But as a profession, they're not trained to look at the meso and the macro issues. As Dr. Doherty said, how these things link that don't work or, do work to make somebody available to success. So, I think we have a lot of head, and I think we have a lot of heart.
And then you will hear a lot about person and environment, as you kind of learn social work. And then I think that's the approach we use. We kind of don't look at the person as a distinct, individual. We kind of put them within different contexts. And then we are trying to work with different contexts as well, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, it will make sense as you learn more.
Right. So I have a friend, and I talk to her. We talk about the bell curve, right? Right. When you do statistics, you have this curve, and the thing in the middle are the people that score the 100s, right? And in some ways, that's what psychiatry is looking at, right? And then you have standard deviations on either side. And in some ways, that's what the psychology people are looking at. And then at the end, you have outliers, and that's who we look at. That's our population. The people who are the outliers, the people who are having trouble functioning in society. All right. Kathleen, do you want to say anything, honey? You're good? Okay. You're good. All right. Lizzie, do you want to say anything?
About my concerns?
Yes, ma'am.
I guess the only thing is how broad social work is and maybe not really knowing exactly where to go, which section I want to specify in.
Mm-hmm. It's extremely broad. So I have a friend, he taught here at Catholic for a number of years, and he's now the dean of a school of social work in, I think it's North Carolina. But at any rate, he just got his certificate in financial literacy. So he's teaching people, poor people, how to manage the little bit of money that they have so that they don't get gouged, by these companies that charge you to cash their paychecks. And they know what's happening when people who have money try to save. Where's the best place to put your money? Where's the best place to think about what you need to do with your money? So that's an area that's new for social work. We can talk generally about fiscal management and help families who are poor, but to actually sit down and work with a family on a budget and a savings plan, a retirement plan, and things like that is a new area of study. So we're constantly, expanding our profession depending on what's happening in the world. We're wherever people are, that's where we are. When we go to the moon, there will be a social worker on the spaceship.
True.
Because people are going to have difficulty getting along on the journey. People are going to have difficulty adjusting to the moon or Mars or wherever. So we will be there, right? We will be there, and we will be trying to figure it out, using the tools that we have and developing new tools to help people in that situation.
And then probably at this time, we want you to be on shore to
Yeah,
some
probably.
extent. And then I think you will probably get to know more about yourself and the population you will be interested in. So at this point, I wouldn't worry about, not, sure about which population or which setting to work with or work at, because you will figure it out. And then the internship, like Dr. Daughtry said, internship can help you to explore further. So be open and then kind of explore different areas. Like Dr. Daughtry said, we have really a wide variety of settings and populations. So kind of explore your interest, with open mind.
That's true. I feel like a lot of social workers that I meet, they'll graduate, they'll start working in a hospital, and then they'll be in a school and then college. So yeah, that's very true. I mean, we're kind of everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes people just don't know what language to use when people say, well, what is social work? So I'm going to give you the language, okay? This is big and broad. I am committed to improving the health and welfare of individuals, families, communities, organizations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that covers the waterfront. And that's a way to push back when people say, what is social work? Just say, I am committed to improving the health and welfare of individuals, families, groups, organizations, and society. And that's really what we do. And then later on, we'll fill in the blanks about how you're going to do that.
And what social work is not, we do not give out welfare benefits. We don't do that. Mm-hmm. People who do that work for social service organizations. They're not necessarily social workers because they're not trained and they're not licensed. We don't do that. And we don't snatch people's children. We don't do that. The court authorizes us to make an investigation of an allegation of abuse or neglect. And if in the course of that investigation, we determine a child is in imminent danger, and that's the key, imminent danger, then of course we're going to remove the child. What else would you have us do? So we don't do those two things that people think that we do. We don't do them at all. All right. So how's everybody feeling? You feeling good? Excited? Ready? We gonna do this thing? Okay. All right then.
Yay.
Yay. So I will see you online Tuesday at 11:10. Right, we're going to be synchronous. Tuesday at 11:10 is our first 101 class. And so we'll get ourselves started and we'll begin this journey of becoming social workers. And we'll learn about the profession, the discipline, and the practice of social work in Social Work 101, 14 weeks. And you will have a great time. You know, you will have a great time. So, you know, in normal times, that class usually has 30 people, and I get football players, I get nurses, I get people who are theater arts majors, I get all kinds of majors in that class. And it's so exciting sometimes because afterwards they say, I had no idea. I would have majored in this if I had known. Because they just don't know, you know, about our profession and the depth and breadth of the profession. They just don't know. And so they really get charged up, you know, when they learn there's a way to help people that has a discipline attached to it and that you can make, you know, a tremendous amount of change by engaging with our discipline. Tremendous amount of change. All right, make sure you download the PowerPoint on the side that has the contact information. Are you good with that? So Caitlin put that up already. So it's way up at the top of the chat, or save the chat, and then that way you'll have everything.
I can put it in the chat again too, if anyone wants me to.
It's contact stuff.
And I put my information in the chat as well.
Okay, thank you, Caitlin. Well, so Caitlin, what happened to the other guys?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they were supposed to come, I guess.
I don't know.
They weren't, I texted them and they were told that they weren't told to come. Kate went to the psychology one.
Uh-huh.
And then Zoe and Maddie said that it wasn't on their schedule to come because like all the orientation advisors have like individualized schedules.
Oh, I see.
So
I see. I got it. I'm good. You know. Any burning questions? Last questions? Yeah. Well, everybody's good. Everybody's under control. All right.
No question, but I have a funny thing. I met someone recently here in Connecticut. Her name's Brittany, and she graduated with a social work major, and she was just talking about you, and she said that she met you. Well, she met you. You were like her teacher a while back, and she said she remembers you because the first day that you had class, or she had your class, you were singing and dancing to a Beyonce song.
I love
They're just a funny little thing. What's that?
I love Beyonce. I'm a member of the Beehive.
We all are, girl.
Yes. Because, you know, Beyonce is all about social work issues, you know, for real. So that's probably true. I mean, you know, as I played a Beyonce song and then we talked about how it relates to social work. You know what, I bet you what song it was? It was the song, you know, you finally put my love on top. You know that song?
Yes.
Right. So all girls know about this, right? When you like a guy, but he's not acting right. And when he finally puts your love on top, that feeling that you get like, oh, it's all good. It's all good. I see, I hear, I understand that you finally put my love on top. That's a social work issue, right? Because a lot of people don't understand, don't do nothing until that happens. right? Because you'll get used and abused. When he finally puts your love on top, you go for it. Okay?
True that.
True that. Right. True that. Anything else? Okay. Yeah, I used to play fancy, Izzy Azalea. Do you all know her?
Iggy?
Iggy, yeah. Yeah, you're right, Iggy Azalea, the Australian girl.
Yes.
Yeah, that's another social work song. That poor child. But anyway, everybody's good. It's 3:47. We're a little bit early, but that's okay because this was a long, long session. And I know you got things to do, people to go see and stuff to do. Okay? All right then, I'll see you on Tuesday. Thank you, Dr. Sabatino. Thank you, Dr. Ko. And thank you, Dr. Farber. You are the best.
Welcome again, everybody.
Thank you.
Caitlin.
Thank you all.
All right, we'll see ya. So Caitlin, do you end the meeting or what happens?
I can, yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, I was in the wrong place.
Bye.
Thank you, Lynn.
Dr. Ko, you are the best.